I'm Adam Todd, and welcome to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. I've always believed that the best way to engage students in a 21st century classroom is to immerse them with the transformative tools that will empower each and every one of them to excel in the world that awaits. My goal is to ignite the spark that propels you and your students in an advanced tomorrow, and your journey into that future starts right now. Classroom Dynamics is supported by Logitech. As education continues to evolve, so does Logitech Education, your partner in content creation for the classroom. With Logitech's cutting-edge technology, students not only learn but also become content creators. Whether it's in person or online, Logitech's tools are designed to inspire educators and learners alike. Capture every educational moment in stunning detail and edit, produce, and share your creative journey with ease. Logitech Education, inspiring the next generation of creators. For more, visit logitech.com/education, transforming classrooms one innovation at a time. Introducing the Logitech Zone Learn headset, a sleek and sophisticated tool crafted to enhance your learning experience. Designed for adaptability, this cutting-edge headset effortlessly transforms any environment into a focused learning zone, be it at home, in a bustling classroom, or on the move. With crystal clear audio and advanced noise-canceling technology, the Zone Learn headset tailors a personalized learning space for your undisturbed concentration. Immerse yourself in coursework, language learning, or virtual presentations with confidence. The precision microphone ensures your voice is heard clearly in virtual classes and meetings, adding impact to your presentations and discussions. Logitech Zone Learn, where sleek design meets advanced technology, revolutionizing the way you learn. Elevate your study sessions, enhance virtual experiences, and embrace the future of education with Logitech. Always connected, always focused, always learning. The Zone Learn headset, your key to success. Discover Higher Ground Gear, your ultimate solution for top-tier technology protection tailored for students and educators. Higher Ground Gear designs purposeful, universal products that evolve and grow with you over time, ensuring your devices are safeguarded with meticulous attention to detail and long-lasting materials. Higher Ground Gear cases stand up to the expected and unexpected of everyday life. Don't compromise on protection. I chose Higher Ground Gear for unparalleled durability and functionality in safeguarding my tech gear, and so should you. For the full lineup of products, including their ShockGuard hard shells for Chromebooks and iPads, visit hggear.com. Elevate your technology protection today with Higher Ground Gear. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast where we get into the exciting world of technology and education. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and today we're taking a look back at Classroom Dynamics Season 2. Now, if you remember, at the conclusion of Season 1, our podcast had been listened to in 33 countries and in over 225 cities worldwide. But as we end Season 2 now, that number has grown significantly to 55 countries and more than 530 cities around the world, and we can't thank our listeners enough. During Season 2, we continue to cover a wide range of topics, from innovative 21st century teaching strategies to the challenges educators face in today's technology-infused classrooms. Now, if you missed any of our episodes, whether it's from Season 1 or Season 2, now's the perfect time to catch up by coming along and taking a trip back through Season 2 and some of our incredible conversational highlights. Enjoy this Season 2 highlights episode. Are you a dedicated educator searching for fresh and engaging resources to inspire your students? Look no further than Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. Discover a treasure trove of easy-to-use lesson plans, vibrant visuals, and interactive activities designed to captivate young minds and ignite their love for learning. Unlock the potential within your classroom with Highly Motivated, from differentiated lap books to test prep passages on a multitude of topics. Our wide range of materials cater to most elementary and middle school grade levels. Join the community of passionate teachers who have already transformed their classrooms. Visit Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers and get ready to inspire, motivate, and empower your students like never before. Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers, where knowledge meets inspiration. Alex Stevens of Higher Ground Gear.
Yeah, I mean, they're made if you're using the capsule, I mean, that alone is just the functionality on that. It's like once people start using higher ground products, our customer retention rate is extremely, extremely high because they actually, really do protect the devices. So, you might pay a little bit more, on the front end, but like in terms of like if you actually drop your device in the case, like you're gonna be fine. Like I've dropped mine countless times. I've actually got to the point when I was using the always on option, I was borderline careless because I was so confident that the case would hold up. I would drop it at airports, wherever I would be. So yeah, the stuff's made to last for sure.
So in a classroom environment, that should not be a problem because especially with kids the way they are, sometimes they're not paying attention. They're not really, all in their responsibility role. And I think that's a big thing to have that for a teacher and even for the school itself that put the money into it in the first place to be able to protect it that way. I think that's a great selling point.
Absolutely.
Dr. Barbara Hubert, Brain Pop.
I'll start a little bit. I'll give you some Brain Pop lore, the origin story of Moby. Legend has it that Mike Watanabe, our chief creative officer and first employee of Brain Pop, actually drew the first sketches of Moby on the back of his resume when in conversation with Dr. Kadar, who is the founder of Brain Pop. And it sort of, Moby was this genesis of a robot is relatable because it's not a certain gender, ethnicity, ability, right? A robot is a robot. And so having Moby, it started in having Moby in these short topics starring a boy and a robot. Mike voiced the boy, Tim, and Moby made beeps. And what has sort of evolved in terms of Moby's purpose is Moby is in every Brain Pop movie. And he's almost stand-in for any questions that a kid might have. When Moby beeps, it's because he's asking a question or he's queuing up for, there's an important idea coming or a misconception that I need addressed. Moby doesn't say a word. Moby beeps, but those beeps are really, really intentional in supporting kids' thinking and sort of queuing them up to, here's a point that might be really great to dig into. And so that has not stopped. Moby, Tim, and Annie became sort of the Annie is our character who leads Brain Pop Jr. Tim and Moby were sort of our first explainers. As popularity grew, we felt a growing need, not even a growing need, a growing responsibility for all kids to be able to see themselves in our characters. And we added Cassie and Rita and Nat and Mateo. They're characters from many different backgrounds, speaking with different viewpoints. And it was a service of hoping that kids could see a little bit of themselves in those characters and also see those characters sort of being the explainers, being the ones sort of sharing that knowledge and bringing kids in. And so giving kids that opportunity to see themselves in that light has sort of been the journey of Brain Pop over the years.
Kate Baker, Book Widgets.
First off, this is all about making the process of grading easier. I taught high school English for 20 years, so lugging a bag of papers back and forth from home to school or spending, numerous hours outside of my contract time grading is definitely a problem that many other teachers face. So Book Widgets makes it so much easier to evaluate your students that you can be efficient and actionable. So I mentioned those 36 different question types before with 30 of them auto-scored. Honestly, why is anyone ever grading by hand, multiple choice, true, false, matching? Why are we grading that by hand when we have tools that can lift that load for us? But then also, not just the grading of the activity, we also can take a look at the data, because when we're going to evaluate our students, it's not always about, those quick auto scored things, because we do have questions like an audio response, a rich text response. So that does require the teacher to manually grade. But when you're in that reporting dashboard and you can use smart filters to hide already correct answers, you can focus your energy on, providing students with actionable feedback. You can update grades, provide them with, if you need to make accommodations for scoring, that you can also provide personalized feedback as well. And then you can choose what kind of feedback you want to give. If you want to give it as a whole class, everybody gets the same good job, great. If you want to do it as an individual, you can do that. So you can also set it up that what your students are seeing. If you don't need your students to see the score and you want them to focus on the grade, that's always important, because I can't tell you how many hours I would spend with my pen marking up a paper and giving great feedback only for the student to look at the paper, see the score, and then toss it, and never return to it ever again. So you can customize the view with book widgets to show them what they need. So if you want to hide the score, show it to them later, you can always do that. So, again, it's all about making the process of grading easier and actionable for both the students and the teacher.
Simon Nicholas, Archer AI.
So a little over a year ago now, by the time this is airing, we started the company Archer, which is a virtual math tutor powered by AI that can work directly with students, work with teachers, or on a broader level, work with schools. So when I say that Archer is a tutor, what do I mean by that in the fullest sense? What is a tutor? So in a really simple sense, when a student uses Archer, they're presented with a math problem, a topic that's been diagnosed that they need to work on, and they see the problem on their screen, and they're asked to solve that problem. But along with the problem, they're given empty spaces, empty step boxes. And in those boxes, they can ask Archer for guidance along the way. They can ask Archer to check their work, see if they've made an error somewhere along that path. And Archer will say, you did a great job on this step. Then you did this part really well. Seems like there's a slight misunderstanding here, or maybe you made a slight miscalculation on that point. So Archer will check work. Archer will rephrase questions to make them easier to understand. Archer, if a student asks, if a student says, I'm stuck, Archer will go back and say, like, okay, well, what do you see in this problem? It'll, like a good tutor should, it'll prompt them to see the things that they already know. And if the student needs Archer to really walk them through a problem, Archer will do that too. And that's a key part of what any tutor will do, and Archer will do that. But a great tutor doesn't just help kids work through problems. A great tutor also plans curriculum, diagnoses and assesses where a student needs to start. Archer does that. A great tutor also builds specific materials just for that student based on that student's needs. Archer does that. A great tutor, if they need to give direct instruction, if a student really doesn't know how to do something, the great tutor needs to be able to teach. Archer, through its allows you to have multimedia uploads, so you can share videos, notes, PowerPoints, whatever. So Archer can do that. And then finally, a great tutor is constantly reassessing when the kid needs to be re-supported in old topics, if there's something that fell through the cracks, or if that student's ready to be pushed ahead. And Archer does that through its evaluation and analysis tool. So that is what Archer is.
Joe Rayo and the total solar eclipse.
It got started when I was almost 7 years old. There was a partial eclipse of the sun that was going to occur on a Saturday afternoon in July in 1963. And my grandfather was the one who directed my attention to this. That particular morning, he said, we're going to have an eclipse later today. And I was 7 years old. I didn't know what an eclipse was. And he took the salt and pepper shaker off the shelf in the kitchen, and he said, the salt shaker is going to be the moon, the pepper shaker is going to be the earth, and my fist is going to represent the sun. Of course, I was a wise guy even back then, 7 years old. I said, Grandpa, that can't be the sun, your fist. And he said, why? I said, because the sun doesn't have any knuckles. But anyway, he lined them up in a straight line, put the moon in between, or the pepper shaker between the salt shaker and his fist, and said, later today, the moon is going to come in front of the sun and block out the sun, not completely, mind you, but almost completely, and we're going to have a chance to see a solar eclipse. And we had about 90% coverage in New York that day. And after the eclipse was over, I was so fascinated by it. I was like, as my grandmother would say, I was a chatterbox at dinner time. And that's when my grandfather said, I made a big mistake. We should have taken you up to Maine, where the eclipse was total. And then he told me the story about how when he was 16 years old, there was a total eclipse of the sun over New York City that he observed from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And he said, it was a grand and glorious event. It was spectacular. And then he said, I'm going to take you to see a total eclipse. I don't know when or where, but we're going to go. And sure enough, 9 years later, in 1972, he piled me, my little sister Lisa, my mom,
Dr. Michelle Ament and Jessica Marucci, ProSolve.
Being in places where we're wrestling with ideas and we're trying to problem solve and we're thinking innovative and we're reflecting on how something went and looking for improvement. And so I think future-wise, that agile workplace is going to continue to grow and grow, and that will be the norm, where those jobs that require just kind of maybe less of that sort of human intelligence, those jobs that are more task-oriented will get replaced by AI more and more. And so I think it will allow people that are in those, that serve in those jobs currently, to be in places where they can be better problem solvers, be more innovative. So I don't like to say AI is going to replace people. I think it will free us up to do more higher order thinking tasks and more deeper collaboration. And in many ways, I'm an optimist. So I think the world will be better for that, because we'll have more people doing that type of thinking and trying to create better solutions for whatever industry or whatever world we're in. Jess, what do you think?
I'm thinking a lot about, we are thinking about an elementary classroom and what the students' experience is, but that starts like higher up with us as educators, right? So just as Michelle, you're talking about how you're leveraging AI tools to do your day-to-day work, this then is going to be something that educators and leaders in education need to become comfortable with, if that is what is really the future types of career and day-to-day work that our students are going to be in. And so kind of coming to that, I think, level of comfort and confidence for educators to understand where AI will fit into their future, into their students' future. And I embrace your positive and optimistic outlook on it, Michelle, because I think if we look at AI in a pessimistic way, it could be really easy to get intimidated by it and resistant to it. But as educators, we know that we are some of the number one people that need to be flexible with the changes in the world, because we're preparing kids for an ever-changing world. And so I just really think that there's a lot of pieces that we talk about with skill building we want to see in our students. We want to equally be able to give our educators the opportunities to focus on those skills in themselves, so they can become better at fostering and developing those skills with kids too.
Kyle Cohen and Principal George Carter.
It's hard for me as an individual to really put my finger on like what that one piece of content or what even my page in general has done. But what I can say to that is I've had the privilege of gaining thousands of followers across multiple platforms who are tuning in to the stories that I'm telling about the realities that are taking place. And I assume that the people who are tuning in are people who are supporting the words that I'm saying and are people who are resonating with the content that I'm creating. And hopefully this will continue to snowball. And I hope to inspire other educators and other people to really share their stories too, because the more content that we can get made that's put into the right hands of people who are sitting in the rooms that create the systems that we are living in, right? When I think about people in politics and people in our government and people who are really behind a lot of these social movements, it's our voices that they're going to turn to. And it's our voices that hopefully that they're going to be listening to, because we're the ones in the trenches doing the work every day. So while I can't necessarily say like I saw this as a result of those videos, I'm optimistic to the fact that hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
your posts are entertaining. There's something about it that brings just like the human element to it.
That's very true. And I try. I like to say that we take the job seriously here at PS79, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So, I mean, as being a teacher for over 10 years, now being an administrator for over 10 years, there are a lot of funny things that happen throughout the day. So I think it's fine to showcase that and to, like, this is the real world. Like, where teachers, we're not up on some pedestal. Weird stuff happens in education too. And like, sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's good to show that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. Would you consider yourself an influencer though?
I don't know if I consider myself an influencer. I have had people reach out and ask me to promote products and after school programs. It's not something I'm really into. I'm not doing this to influence. My main focus is on my school. Like, I'm very proud. This school is my baby. Like, it's my third child. Sometimes becomes before the rest of my family, as my wife would tell you. So I don't know. I'm always so proud of the work that we do here. I'm proud of our community that we built. I'm proud of my teachers and my staff. So for me, it's just really all about showcasing that and showing off all the great things that we do here.
Ben Gilbanks, Brush Ninja Animation.
And I love when people post on social media, you get teachers posting Brush Ninja being used in their classroom and the artworks that students have created. And it's just amazing seeing all this, like knowing that my little app that I made on a whim is now being used by kids to educate future generations. It's amazing for me.
We had the creator of Tux Paint a while back, and he said, wow. He even said the same thing. I made it as kind of like a side project, and look what happened.
Yeah.
Right? How the world kind of like just takes to it. And the application that you put together, it may not be the application that teachers are using, so to speak, in terms of your intentionality of it, but the broad scope of what you can do with Brush Ninja Animation is just amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Dr. Michael Ford.
They know STEM will not look the same in any school. It's going to look different everywhere you go. And that's a really cool thing. It's not like a prescriptive curriculum, iReady or something like that, where you get your textbook, you get your curriculum, and it's going to look the same any classroom you walk in. STEM doesn't work that way.
It's not a one size fits all.
Yes, sir. It's not. Yeah. So I think that's what I really get passionate about, because we're a Title I school, elementary school, pre-K through fourth grade. Our kids are hard kids. If you've ever worked in a high poverty school, there's a different dynamic that comes with that. But the opportunities we're able to give our students, especially with our STEM lessons, whether they're related to reading, math, science, what have you, when we build those lessons in, the hands-on learning, behavior goes out the window. You don't worry about the misbehavior. The kids get engaged, and the learning becomes a lot more relevant for the kids. Our school in particular, we have 6 pillars that we focus on with our STEM work. That's just something that's kind of evolved over the years as we've worked on being our STEM school. Those 6 pillars are creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, character and citizenship, and then celebration. So I guess we really have 7, but we put character and citizenship together. But that last one, celebration, whether you're a STEM school or not, that's something I would encourage any school, any teacher, any school leader listening. Think about how you celebrate. That's something that gets overlooked quite frequently. So we're very purposeful in making that one of our core pillars in our building.
Anthony Varlisi, World Strides. So the National Youth Leadership Forum, the Pathways to STEM program, is a very popular program that's offered by Envision by World Strides. How does this unique program compare to other STEM education initiatives?
Yeah, so our Pathways to STEM program holds a special place because it's our youngest program that we offer for elementary school students. And I think what really sets our programs up, differently than others is the people who are joining them all have a shared interest. We used to say that they were like-minded, but they actually, it'd be really silly to say that people are like-minded because everyone came with a different experience, a different perspective, but they all had a shared interest. They all wanted to go into STEM, and that's a really loaded phrase now, but it allowed them to build connections very quickly with one another. And I'm always impressed on the first night when these third graders who don't know each other are like making friends and building connections, and then after 6 days they are crying because like their friend that they've met for the it's like their best friend forever, and it's like, because you had that shared interest, it's amazing what passion, when people have the same passion and you put them together in a room, what they can accomplish. And so I think one, that sets us up really unique, because not a lot of times are you with people who have that same interest. Not that you should be, but it definitely helps. And then I think the hands-on components. So with medicine in that program, they dissect a calf heart. I can't imagine dissecting a calf heart when I was in third grade. That actually makes me sick as a grown adult thinking about it. But, I'm building and programming a robot. I know robots are fun now, but they do fingerprinting and crime scene analysis. And what's really unique about all this is you're doing all this in 6 days, but we tie it all back to a single storyline. And so the students are doing the case of the missing map, and they're learning about medicine and how that's going to help them on this case. They're learning about fingerprinting and how they're going to figure out who did it. And they've got to design a bridge that the robot has to cross over to go and find them. It's this whole thing. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but everything that they do connects to one another. And so that in and of itself is really unique, because sometimes you don't, in life, there's a lot of different things that are connected, but it's not in a controlled environment. So you don't sometimes have a hard time establishing those connections. Whereas here we have very, very good control over that.
Dr. Michelle Neustadt, Brain Pop Science.
What we do is we want to make sure when a learner comes into Brain Pop Science that we level the playing field. They start with a phenomenon, and this is intentional to activate prior knowledge, bring in past experiences. But if a learner, for example, has never made a s'more before and we're asking about chemical reactions or physical changes, we start with someone roasting a marshmallow and making the s'more. So everyone engages at the same time. And then we purposely scaffold the experience throughout to ensure that if a learner has a bit of a struggle, that's okay. There's purposeful struggle built in for every learner. And the experience is a cohesive experience. So it brings each learner to a really high cognitive demand task at the end, which is our claim, evidence, and reasoning.
So Brain Pop Science is relatively new. It's a new offering that's designed for middle school. Tell us about Brain Pop Science, and can you walk us through its unique approach with that?
Absolutely. So Brain Pop Science is new. Many of you probably know Brain Pop. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary, but Brain Pop Science just launched about 2.5 years ago, and it is absolutely designed for the middle school audience. In our design, we really want to focus on learners practicing the practices. So what does that mean? That means that every investigation, which is a lesson, is built around the idea of learners should be using models, and they can analyze data, and they really use mathematical thinking in their everyday approach. So we have designed these lessons, these investigations, to start with a real world phenomenon. How can we get learners interested? How can we get them engaged and see science all around them? And then our learners are the doers. So they need to engage with all of our interactive resources. So we have simulations, data manipulatives that have real world data sets from like NOAA and NASA. We have related readings and primary source materials. And throughout all of this, learners answer questions. They also make observations. So these observations then carry through the whole investigation. And at the end, they have to answer this guiding question. The guiding question is given to them at the beginning of the investigation so they can continually think about it. So for example, why can't you unbake a cake? Is one of the guiding questions. So it's a scientific question, but it's engaging. It's interesting. It's something that many of us have experienced before. When you put something into the oven for like cupcakes or cake or cookies, whatever, it can unbake. So students then answer that at the end in a claim, evidence, and reasoning format.
Gaurav Bradu and Grace Lee, Logitech.
Our goal is to use Next Life plastics across our entire portfolio, and we are making pretty significant progress towards that goal. So as of March of 2023, last year, 58% of Logitech products already included Next Life plastics, and it was used across all of our product categories, which includes mice, keyboards, headsets, webcams, speakers, and our video conferencing systems. And at Logitech, we are investing heavily into our Design for Sustainability program, which empowers our engineering, product, and design teams to then accelerate our transition to low carbon materials and designs across our entire portfolio. And the goal of this program is to make each new generation of products that much more durable and repairable. So in the case of classrooms, less things are thrown away and they are kept out of landfill. And also just making our products more recyclable. And this will help ultimately lower the carbon impact of these products on the environment.
One of the first things, from a sustainability standpoint that our amazing sustainability team ingrained into me that stuck is that once you've made a thing, making sure that it can actually be used and live a life for the longest amount of time is the best service that you can do to it. And so that's one of our goals is, right, hey, how long can this product have a usable life while not compromising? Like, we know certain things last for a very long time or detrimental, but like making sure that we cover those bases, but then give it multiple lives. And so this starts actually with, like we said, building around those real scenarios, right? Like, and letting kids be kids and building with human behaviors in mind. So one of those things is like shoving things in and out of backpacks, tossing a backpack at the end of the day, sticky fingers from eating Cheetos, or juice boxes spilling on things, boredom that can lead to fidgeting. And from here, we like take those things and then we'll say, okay, well, how do we actually build parameters around this? So the team will then engineer these products with the right material choices and the right electromechanical designs. And then we layer in rigorous testing and redesign to meet these and recognize those scenarios where we need to meet those. And in some cases, we'll even exceed them. So specifically, what that translates into is when we do drop testing, right, for Logitech pen, crayon, our cases, etc., we will say, okay, let's assume it's being dropped from 4 feet, from 6 feet, not just, which is, pretty high. And then for the headsets, we're like, okay, what's the most likely thing? 4 feet, you've got this around, drop it. And then we said, okay, what's the test that we can use? So we use military grade testing on the products. So it's super rigorous. Then we were like, okay, this is cool to represent the sort of fixed sides. But then we took our rugged combo and we said, okay, it needs to protect the iPad as well, while protecting itself. So we backpack tested the thing and literally dropped it 10,000 times in a backpack. Because we don't, again, the goal is not to make something that under ideal conditions works. It's to say, because the kids aren't doing anything wrong. They just need to live, right? They want to be kids. So instead of like reprimanding them or having like, you need to do X, we assume the baseline. And then from there, right? Like, I was the official Cheetos tester in one of the products. Because, we were like, hey, will this be cleaned for Logi Pen? We needed to make sure it could be cleaned. And so then we say, okay, this needs to be super easy to clean, but then can it hold up to cleaning? So many of the materials we use will say 2,700 wipes using the standard solutions, and it still needs to last. It can't degrade beyond that. And then we do things like twist and bend testing, right? So for example, that headset example that you gave, right? One of the things we would do is like put the headset on a chair and sort of see how it yanked if you pulled it, if you're like, oh, I just need to grab it. And so then we devised this twist test and this sort of torsion test of, you're like, cool, we need to make sure that this doesn't break under those circumstances.
Adriana Birkins, the Lewis Latimer House Museum. It is interesting to learn that he had such a historical connection to Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, and these such ties to these historical figures, especially with technology and inventions, and around that time of this bustling just explosion of technology. But he's not very well known when it comes to people like Edison and Bell, yet he was so instrumental, right, with all the inventions and everything that has contributed to society. And some of the technology that we still use today, that's still around today, was born from that time frame and from him. So with that, why is it so important to keep that legacy alive, especially with the museum?
That's a great point. Yeah, it's interesting that he had such an amazing career, especially at the time when it was happening. For his patent drawings for the telephone with Alexander Graham Bell, he's not credited for those drawings, but it's again through his own writing. So him putting himself into history, putting himself on paper. That's how we know the dates. Everything kind of links up to prove that he was helping with that patent process for the telephone. And he's a really important example, I think, of why it's important to kind of learn about and really explore the stories of hidden figures like Louis Latimer, who really improved a lot of things, kind of worked on a lot of things for like a lot of the technology and things that we use today. For the light bulb in particular, he didn't necessarily invent the light bulb or invent the carbon filament, but he worked on a lot of things that made it more practical and more affordable to use. The actual ovens and the process that would kind of bend the filament into, at the time when he was working with Here Maxim, into that M shape, but he made it so that the filaments were much stronger, wouldn't break as often, could be then produced more often. He was working on the chemicals used to dry their inert gas that filled the bulbs, the glass blowing equipment to produce the bulbs, which for me is very exciting. I love glass blowing. So to learn about that is really exciting. And I'm trying to think of how to pull in glass blowing into some kind of programming there. He was thinking about sockets and switches as well. And he also wrote a comprehensive manual explaining lighting systems in 1890 that was still like the seminal resource up until 1920. But right, he's not really known, at least at this time, he's really not really known as well as he should be. So that's kind of what our purpose is as a museum, being housed in his home, to really spread that word, to spark an interest in learning more about the teams behind these really great inventors, the people that were doing the research, doing the testing, to really highlight those stories and encourage people to learn more and to learn more about other inventors.
Dr. Cassie Quigley and Danielle Harrow, authors of An Educator's Guide to STEAM. The definition of STEM is pretty straightforward, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Of course, if you include the A for art, you have STEAM. But what is your own personal definition of what STEAM is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Danny and I really entered this conversation out of working with schools and schools that wanted to expand the notion of STEM to be more inclusive, right? To ensure that all students could participate and be really engaged around it. And so through this work, we really view STEAM not as just the disciplines of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, but instead through a conceptual model that we developed with teachers that focuses on what type of instruction can support this type of transdisciplinary learning through problem solving. So that's the big key for our work. So for us, what makes transdisciplinarity really important is this focus on problem solving, because it helps to bridge those disciplines, right? When you think about problem solving in the real world, it uses many more disciplines than just one, like science or math, but really kind of incorporates all of them.
Petya Maximova, Canva for Education.
Well, so we know that technology is pervasive in the lives of youth and adults. A really simple answer to the last part of your question is that children and young adults need to practice positive interactions with technology. As you mentioned, our modern world relies on technology for efficiency and creating and producing and a network sharing of ideas, and certainly for innovation. I would ask listeners to consider that the T in STEAM is what fuels innovation and creativity, which isn't to say that low-tech or no-tech STEAM activities shouldn't be considered and used. We actually see the most engaging STEAM units offering students opportunities to build something offline and then using digital tools when it makes the work more efficient or collaborative, creative, or interesting.
Petya Maximova, Canva for Education.
So the traditional classroom obviously is something that is a good base, but we all want to move towards something that is more personalized, is more relevant to the digitally savvy generation. And so what we do is exactly that. We provide all of these amazing opportunities for teachers to use our tools and transform that environment. So for instance, Canva allows multiple users to collaborate simultaneously, which allows teachers, students, other staff members, and just everyone in the school to work together on a single design, making the process more efficient and collaborative. And so, for instance, tools like whiteboards, mind mapping templates, share work via link, real-time comments and reactions. Even we have a tool that is version control, design insights to track progress. They're all in place to encourage collaboration. And so these lessons and projects created on Canva inspire students to develop many interpersonal skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, design, creativity, all these interpersonal kind of abilities that ultimately inspire them to do their best work. And all of this is, as we discussed earlier, applicable to the real world as well. So students who will be in the university 5 to 10 years from now, it really prepares them for the real world, and they get inspired because they see that that's relevant. But the other thing that I touched upon earlier as well is the personalized lessons, which is another way to foster this culture of innovation in the classroom. We have seen in surveys that, one size does not fit all. So, customized ways of learning is just a great way to ensure that students are getting the best sort of learning journey that they can have. And some specific features, creativity and brainstorming with whiteboards and mind mapping tools can facilitate collaboration, which can in turn foster creativity and ultimately drives innovation in the classroom. Also, using the right digital templates helps everyone organize their creative ideas and express them with more clarity. Or using brainstorming templates allows teachers and students to think outside of the box, which is a really great way to go outside of the traditional kind of way of thinking, and not to be afraid to share ideas and to ultimately storm brilliant concepts together.
Well, that's a look back at Season 2 of Classroom Dynamics, and for those of you who have been listening, thanks for tuning in today, and make sure that you share what you've learned or any takeaways or reflections that you've had, and tag us on Twitter at Class Dynamics or Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. We always look forward to hearing your thoughts on our episodes and sharing the different ways in which you're using what you've learned. You can also help support Classroom Dynamics with as little as $3 a month at classroomdynamicspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Well, that's all for this season. Class is dismissed, but don't forget, the learning never stops. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep the dynamic vibes alive until next time. This is Classroom Dynamics, where every lesson is a step toward the future of 21st century education. See you next season. Thanks for listening. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Classroom Dynamics, where knowledge and inspiration meets innovation. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and found it both insightful and uplifting. As always, my goal is to provide you with practical strategies, engaging stories, and powerful insights that can fuel your motivation as an educator. I believe that when knowledge and inspiration do come together, incredible things can happen in your classroom. And for all of you who may feel that it's too late to strengthen your craft, I challenge you to make it your mission to do so. You've worked hard to get to where you are today, and it's never too late to infuse new life into your work. So why not make today that day to do so? I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. You can follow Classroom Dynamics on X at Class Dynamics or on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. If you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you know a teacher who may benefit from today's show, please share it with them. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement into your everyday routines. Until then, keep igniting that spark in your classroom and never stop believing in the incredible impact you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think. If you like this episode, join us as we dive into the future of classroom animation with Brush Ninja, a digital innovation by Ben Gilbanks designed to transform education through animation. From history to science and language arts to digital storytelling, Brush Ninja breaks boundaries, making complex concepts accessible and engaging. Empower your students to become animators, storytellers, and critical thinkers. Join us on Classroom Dynamics to find out more about the full potential of animation in your classroom.
So I've been interested in art and animation since I was tiny, forever. And then in '95, Toy Story was released, and that was like a turning point for me. I wanted to become a digital artist, make computer graphics and that sort of thing. I really wanted to work for Pixar.